Hey, what's up, you guys? My name is Wolf, and welcome back to another episode of LEGO Arts. So, in the last episode, we did a showcase on Tom and Jerry, which turned out to be one of my favorite showcases that I've done. And for this episode, we are doing a showcase that I find near and dear to my heart, and that is LEGO Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So, if you recall, a while back, I did a showcase on Power Rangers, specifically with the two variations of Tommy, and for a while, I wanted to go back and revisit those guys. But with the 30th anniversary that it recently passed. So think of this as sort of a belated celebration for that. I decided to go ahead and do the entire Mighty Morphin team. So we have new versions of Tommy in the background, and then we have the original 5 Rangers up in the front. This showcase took a little while to do, but a huge thanks to Titan King for making the helmets as well as like the chest armors for both versions of Tommy, and overall this really turned out really good. I am a bit disappointed that I wasn't able to finish this just before 30th came up, but with the final results, these really turned out really great, and again, in the end, I'm really happy with the overall results, so I'm really excited for this one. So, as you guys know the drill, we're going to take these minifigures one at a time, do review them, explain the process, why we're there out, and then go from there. So, without further ado, let's get the pedestal out and get this showcase on the road. To begin this showcase, we're going to start off with the White Tiger Ranger, and I definitely love like how this guy came out. It's such an improvement compared to the original one. So, in terms of expanding more on this one, I definitely want us to make it a bit more screen accurate. Accurate with this one, such as like using different different styles of golds this time. So, here is the original like White Ranger that I made at the time, which you can definitely see so much difference between these two. Like the lines are smaller and cleaner. The gold is actually it's way more accurate on with the TV show. This one isn't terrible. Like, I'll say that, like, at the time, this served out really good, but I definitely love the new and improved White Ranger that this was made. And again, Titan King did an amazing job with the helmet. Like, you could see like the level of detailing that he put into this. That was like one of the recommendations that I had for this, of like one of the key things that I wanted was to make it as screen accurate as possible, and everything with the helmet and with the chest armor. And the chest armor, he did an amazing job at it. Like, you can see the detailing he put like on the coin chest piece on here. This is very loose. I had thought about like maybe gluing this on, but after the recent experience that I had to do with Carter from Noble Team, I didn't want to accidentally destroy this chest piece, especially since I was like so far into it, I didn't want to accidentally ruin anything. So I just left it as was. The base minifigure is actually a clean monochrome figure. I got like some monochrome figures on all of these guys, just to use as like some base bodies and work my way around it. I then glued on like some printed up decal torsos that I had, and painted them up because at the time my printer was running out of ink, so I had to go back and clean it up a little bit. So I added those on there, and then painted in some white paints to try and blend it in pretty good, which did turn out really well. With some more paint work that I painted on, with some of the boots, as well as like I guess I would call them like some thigh armor, but like what he wraps around his legs, I added those on as well. And like I said, these lines are much smaller and more clean. And then with the belt piece, I sculpted on the little belt buckle, which, when comparison to the other one, not very good, but this one definitely turned out much better, like, you can definitely see the detailing on there. And then, again, like, back with the helmet, again, it turned out really good. I think, like, one of the most difficult things that I had painting with this was was the various layers of white paint that I had to put onto this, especially on the helmet. I had to give it a couple of tries, and then painting on the rest of it and making sure that everything doesn't bleed on to the other areas, especially in these small, tiny gaps in between, like, the whiskers on the helmet as well as the stripes on top, like, trying to make sure that everything turned out really good. But I'm glad that in the end, it all turned out good. And then for a final piece, I added in some glove tops to make it cleaner and to make it look more smooth, and connect in like his arm braces on there, which I think turned out really good. And unfortunately, with the final bit, the helmet is fused to the head. Completely, so I can't remove it. But just to give a future heads up for all these guys, all the helmets the helmets, like, most of them can be removed, but for all the figures, all of them are blank heads. Mostly because aside from the two Tommies, as well as for Billy, they've had different actors playing for each of the Rangers, and I didn't want to, like, make extra minifigures for them, as well as, like, build extra heads for them, like, making sure, mostly just to make sure that they wouldn't get lost and whatnot. So to compromise for that, like, since I figured that most of the helmets would just be stuck on the heads they're all just blank minifigure heads in your head. So just to give future clarification. So if you're wondering, like, is this one Jason? Is this one Zach? Is this one Treaty? I'll leave it to your imagination. Moving on down the line, we're going to move on to the original 5 Rangers, starting off with the Red Tyrannosaurus Ranger. And this turned out really cool. Cool. I especially love the paintwork that I put into this guy. So, again, with the torso piece, like, just to print it off decal, and then went back and painted on. It was super tedious on painting, like, recoloring all these little lines with the muscle detailing and everything, but I'm glad that it turned out pretty good in the end. The triangles, I did a little Photoshop work, and just took a diamond and basically just Photoshopped it onto the torso. So, it's slightly misaligned, but it did turn out pretty good. And then I went back and painted and repainted in a couple of the works. Same thing on the back. And yeah, it still turned out pretty good. The helmet I painted on with this cool I think it was like stainless red. It was red or something, but I found this really, really good red that blends in perfectly with the monochrome like red minifigure body, as well as, like, when painting on for the torso. It turned out really great. All right. The boots, you can see, like, we did some detailing on there. Like, I first did a base paint on white, which took a couple tries, and then I went back with the red to try and paint in the diamond detailing as best as possible. But thankfully, I was able to, like, get most of it, and it still, like, represents like the overall design pretty good. The hands. There's some articulation on there, and I even did a little bit of sanding on the hands. Not too much of it, but just a little bit enough to where I could apply some paint on and make sure that it wouldn't get damaged and whatnot. Then went back in with the little diamonds around the hands. The hands probably did a little bit more than the actual design, but it still represents the overall design for it. And then painted in the waist piece. I painted on white for a couple of layers, and then sculpted on the little dinosaur morpher bucklet, belt buckles, which turned out pretty good. Like, there's not a lot of super detailing into it, mostly because, again, it's such a small area that I would basically just be hating myself way more of trying to detail that than the actual results of it. So, but I am glad that it turned out pretty good. And then finally with the head, definitely took a couple tries on printing off the heads, but still turned out pretty good. I love the detailing that Titan King with this, like, with the mouthpiece, how it blends in pretty well. The overall detailing look, you can see, like, on the front, on the top of the helmet, it gives out the same design for the Red Ranger's helmet in the show. Really, really good. Good. Underneath a blank red head minifigure head, and then underneath, and then I carefully just went and just detailed, like, the white neck collar piece, like, on the suit, which turned out pretty good. And overall, like, it really turned out as a pretty cool Ranger. Like I said, it definitely took a couple tries on getting the right print off for this one. But in the end, with the overall results, I really like this Ranger. Next up on our list is the Black Mastodon Ranger. In terms of with the torso decal, I had to actually make a separate one altogether for this one, because at the time I didn't know that my printer was running low on ink. So my idea was to do some of the detailing with the triangle lines, called diamond lines, to have those remain in black. But then for the rest of the body, I colored those in gray. So that way when I go in to do the paintwork, those would stand out, more, and I would just go in and do like the rest of the detailing. Unfortunately, after I found out the results of it, I had to paint in those completely different, which not terrible, but it was definitely way more of a tedious process than I was hoping for. But thankfully in the end, like, it still turned out pretty good. But I wound up giving myself way more work than I was initially intending. The boots and the hands are just about the same. Same thing with the waist piece. waist piece. The helmet is a really, really cool design. And cool design. Like, it definitely like captures the overall detailing on the Black Ranger's helmet design. I definitely went. I first went in and just like did the base paint in black. I did a couple layers on that. I painted in the silver for the mouthpiece. Same thing with the tusks. And tusks. I saw that there was a couple of stuff with the Black Ranger's design had like a silver outline around with the helmet. The helmets. But I think that was primarily used to differentiate between like what was the visor and what's the helmet. That's the helmet. Since the detailing is mostly shown here, I figured we could just go ahead and just leave it like just as it was. And it still stands out really, really good. Really good. There's more articulation on here. Did the articulation with the hands and the hands. I did the articulation and I did like the sanding with all these minifigures, especially Green, which we'll get to him later on. But again, back with the helmets, a really cool detailing, and I keep forgetting on like the mastodon ears on like the sides of the helmet for some reason. But I love that we can clearly see them on the top of it. And again, Titan King did an amazing job with the overall design of it. I'd say like in terms of like with some when it came to doing the paint work for these Rangers, this one was probably one of the easier ones, as it was pretty straightforward. But with the torso, though, that was definitely the most challenging one. But thankfully, in the end, it still turned out really cool. And this was an awesome Ranger to work on. Next up, we have the blue Triceratops Ranger. With this one, this was actually one of the few minifigures that, like, when I printed off the helmets, actually, the first batch came out good. I had to do a couple of retakes with each of them. The next one especially, but we'll get to that in a bit. In terms of like with some of the paintwork, you can kind of see the different blues, the two separate blues on here. Unfortunately, like that was like one of the small problems that I had with this one. And I thought about doing some sealants, but with sealant on with paper, I didn't know if that would like ruin the overall torso entirely. And I had already put so much work into it that I didn't want to accidentally destroy anything. So I just left those as it was. But it still is a pretty cool design. And back with the helmet, I got a helmet like really cool, like how this turned out. Like you could see like the small detailing, like some of the indents on the helmet, which really, really cool. Cool. The Triceratops horns, and the eyes, all turned out really awesome. Like Titan did an amazing job at it. Underneath the helmet, like you could see like a blank minifigure head, and the white painted on collar. And then with the boots detailing just about the same. Yeah, not really much to explain on here. Like the overall difference, like which with most of them is pretty much like with the helmet designs here and there. But again, it's still really impressive with the overall approach with this one. I'd say like the only thing I wish I would have been able to change would be either get a blue that would blend in way more with the overall minifigure, or try to figure out a way to do sealant without destroying anything. Because there were definitely some moments that when I was just painting on like the base coloration of trying to not damage the outline muscle detailing, there was definitely a lot of moments where I actually had to go back and refix either the base paint, or try and fix the muscle detailing. But overall, like, still turned out really, really cool. Cool. I did see a couple of other stuff of like there was like a silver outline underneath this visor, but it's so small that I figured that like wouldn't be really important to put that on there. And also, I didn't want to accidentally like either ruin the visor or ruin more of the helmet and just have it in an endless repeated process. So definitely some stuff I had to compromise here and there. But aside from the stuff that I would change, this still turned out like a pretty cool figure. Next up on our list, we have the yellow saber-toothed tiger ranger. Now, in terms of the helmets, this one I had to reprint so many times. The first prints came out in either like the stand stuff that I had on either where I had too many of them and they were damaging the helmet when I removed it, so remove that. Others either mostly came out in misprints for where like not even half the helmet would forge. And then like a bunch of other stuff for where it printed off completely, but it was slightly messed up. So took multiple tries to get this one right. Until finally I got the right helmet design that I was just like, perfect. Okay, leave it as it is. As it is, please don't mess it up. As that mess it up. And thankfully, I was able to paint on the helmet, do all the detailing work, and make sure that everything came out good. So that was definitely a bonus. Definitely a bonus for me. Now, with the paintwork itself, like I did another stain yellow that I found that blends in a little bit more with the monochrome body, but is still slightly different. However, it does blend in slightly a bit more. It's weird to say that, but it does work a little bit more. When it came like with some of the other base detailing, I think I did like first the visor first, and then like went back and did like the fangs, and and then the mouthpiece, but still turned out pretty good. I did do a lot of like checking and making sure like the other details on the helmets, like like the eyes and the nose, to see if they were the right colors, and they were, which like perfect, turned out really good. You can't see it and fully see it. Well, you can kind of see it on the back, but white color underneath with a blank minifigure head with the decal pieces. These are the same decals. Yeah, this is the same decal template that I use for all my female minifigures. And in terms on going back and doing the outline detailing, this one was the easiest one. So definitely appreciate it with that. And then with the helmet, and then with the rest of the arms, just about with the same. And the same, like we have some articulation in the arms, and with the legs, for all the legs except for green, I didn't even have to do any sanding, or drilling on the waist piece. All of these like came out really, really good. And especially like since I wasn't painting underneath the waist or painting on the legs, I was able to just leave them as they are, and that way they have perfect articulation and nothing will get damaged. And yeah, overall with it, even though the helmet was definitely the one Ranger helmet that I had to reprint so many times, and I have a feeling that if I make this helmet again, I'm gonna wind up doing the same thing because for some reason that one just kept having problems. I'm glad that I was able to, in the end, get a solid Ranger helmet perfect for this one. And yeah, with the overall results, turned out really cool. Next up, we have the pink pterodactyl Ranger. So with the helmet design, like starting off again, amazing detailing. You can see the indent detailing around on the top of the helmet. Really, really cool. Very cool. A couple of tries on printing off with this one. I think this was actually like either the second or third attempt that I printed off with this one. This one turned out pretty good. The first one was all right, but there were some support beams that damaged the visor a little bit. So I had to go back and fix that. But again, turned out really awesome. And then like doing the paintwork around this one, just like with Tommy's White Ranger helmet, a couple of layers around it, but not as extreme. And thankfully in the end, like it turned out really, really cool. The waist and the torso decal, same thing. Like just do the ally detailing around the waist, and then like on the chest and on back. Turned out really good. And then just carefully took like this, I think it was like a rose pink or something, but it was a pretty dark pink because it blended in perfectly with the monochrome pink minifigure, and just carefully painted around the back and the back and the top. Turned out really, really good. And the waist piece is the most unique one because this one comes in with a skirt, just like on the show. It definitely took a bit of a process to do. Like I used some electric tape on some paper, and then just carefully wrapped it around the waist piece, and carefully glued it on there, making sure that it all fits. And then went back in, again, cut it up with some scissors, to make it look good, and again, well, as good as possible, but just to make it more accurate. And then went back in with the paintwork. When it came to like painting with the belts, I did try and do some measurements on there to try and see to line it up with the waist piece for where like if there wasn't a skirt at all, this would just be like the minifigure body and figure like plain legs. And thankfully I was able to line it up pretty good for where it would match up for where like if this was just a minifigure waist piece, no skirt, and the belt would fit on perfectly. And same thing with the belt. And the belt, like I did before, just a little bit of procreate clay and then glued it on there. Though, unfortunately, because of the skirts, there is some articulation, not quite as much to like do full-on running poses, kicks and whatnot, but the articulation still works on with the arms, and same thing with the head, and the head and everything, and still turned out really, really cool. So and so it was definitely one of the more challenging figures, and figures specifically with that skirt. But overall, turned out really, really good, and I'm really proud of this one. Last but certainly not least, we have Tommy's Green Dragon Zord Ranger. This was definitely one of my favorite minifigures to customize, and probably the most challenging one out of all of them, because this one definitely requires the most work to do. So when first approaching this minifigure, this was one of the last ones that I touched on, because I knew it would be a bit more challenging to do compared to the other ones. So one of the stuff that I asked beforehand, like on my Instagram, I put up a poll to sort of like show like which green base color would I work with, because the base monochrome minifigure that I had was pretty good. But I wanted to see what the others' opinions and see which one would work. So I had like a grass green and an emerald green, and it was a pretty close call. But overall, the emerald green came out on top. And my sister and I did a couple of color tests, just to see like which one would go, and we figured that the emerald green turned out really good because it really helps stand out. With Tommy's like more vibrant appearance, especially when they used a lot of the original Japanese show footage on Green Ranger. But the emerald green really turned out good. Plus, I have a lot of this stuff, so the more I get to use it, the better. And again, it turned out really, really amazing. When it came to printing off of it, took a couple of attempts, but I finally got a couple of Green Ranger helmets that really turned out good. I love the detailing approach, like with the teeth and the mouth, really cool. The helmet on top of it is really nice, especially when you look at it from the sides. And the sides is really cool. The chest armor is a really nice addition. I had thought about trying to sculpt it out on my own, but I kept running into a couple of issues. So I asked Titan, like, once he finished the helmets, I'm like, hey, could you do the chest armors as well? And he helped out, and he did an amazing work on this one. Like, it works pretty good. It wraps around with the body completely. Really, really nice. Though I will say, like, one challenge that I approached is, like, when I did when I settled down for doing emeralds, I realized I would have to repaint this entire figure. Completely redo it. So I had to do some sanding on this one, like some sanding on the sides, a little bit of drilling underneath the legs to make sure that when I painted those on, when I have some articulation, the paint doesn't chip off, and thankfully it doesn't. I think like just a couple of layers of the emerald, and it turned out really good, and enough sanding on the waist for where it doesn't look too damaged, compared to some of the other ones that I've done. But there's enough room to where the body can move completely and naturally, and it looks really amazing. And in the belt buckle piece, I painted in this one gold to match up with his Morphin on the show, and turned out really good. I also sculpted on like his wrist, his armbands on the sides, and did a different detailing work on his gloves and as well as on his boots, and turned out really awesome. Like, this still turned out cool. Like, comparison to the old Green Ranger that I made, you can definitely see a significant difference between the two. Like, so much more. This one is more clean and polished, and this one, I have to remind myself, like, not to give myself too much crap from the past, but yeah, in comparison, there's definitely a lot of growth between this one. Plus, these are two completely different Ranger designs. I would definitely like to do the Bat in the Suns version of Green Ranger again in the future, but I'll save that for another day. For now, I really love this design, this overall design on this one. I think only other challenging thing apart from having to do the base painting entirely was painting on the black detailing on the torso, on the chest armor. I probably could have just left it as that, but I wanted to do like the extra little mile to extra detailing and whatnot. And in the end, though, it turned out really awesome. It is probably my favorite on this one, favorite on the showcase, because of like the level of detailing that I had and that was put into this, and the overall approach. It's just really, really fun. And there we go. That is going to do it for this episode of LEGO Arts. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was a fun project that really touches for my childhood, as Power Rangers was one of my favorite shows growing up as a kid, and especially doing these minifigures. All of these came out really awesome. awesome. And a huge shout out again to Titan King, as this project couldn't have been possible without him. And I'll leave a link to his Instagram in the description below. Go check him out. He's made some amazing works. And yeah, overall, this turned out really fun. Now, if you're curious about what some more Power Ranger projects in the future, I probably won't be doing like all the Power Ranger teams, because that would take a lot. That would take a long process to do each and every one of them. Some teams that I would definitely want to do would be like Dino Thunder and RPM. I especially want to do a couple of other, like some of the really cool Ranger designs like Korag from Mystic Force, Zenaku from Wild Force. Definitely the White Ranger design from Dino Thunder. Though for some other Ranger minifigures, I for sure want to do the White Dragon Ranger design from Jason David Frank's The Legend of the White Dragon. When that comes out in September, I definitely plan to do that minifigure in the future. For now, though, that'll do it for Power Rangers. Now, in terms for some upcoming projects like Halo Reach is just about finished. Like George's gun came in, so I finished up with that figure. I'm doing a couple of modifications for Noble 6, and he's almost finished. I just got a couple more parts coming in. Some more parts that came in for Bendy and the Dark Revival, so I can get to work on those. And as I keep saying, I know I'm being repetitive with this, but the Ragnarok minifigures are finished. I'm now currently figuring out the overall display design for it. It's being a slow process, but I am excited for the overall results in the end. Not entirely sure what the next project is going to be, but it'll probably either be like another like short showcase that I wanted to do, or maybe a solo minifigure. We'll see how it goes. But for now, that is going to be it. So if you guys want to see more episodes like this in the future, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notifications. It really helps us work on Let's Plays, LEGO products, and really have some fun. And if you want to check out some of my other stuff, you can check out some of the other projects that I've done through my LEGO Arts playlist. And let's do gameplays and whatnot. And yeah, that is going to be it. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, hit that like button, comment below what you think, share your friends, subscribe to YouTube, follow me on Twitch. And here's a hop with the bone. Ow! Thank you guys. I'll see you next time. What do you guys do right there?